Welcome to the 6th episode of the Moocast. I am joined by Michael, Nate,
Hi.
John, and Patricia.
Hey.
And today we are going to be discussing the animated show RWBY, produced and owned by Rooster Teeth and created by Monty Ohm. How did you guys all get introduced to the show?
I actually found out about the show through seeing Nathan's post on Facebook back in the day. Seriously, and I thought it looked so badass.
That's so funny.
I thought it was sick. So I was and that's literally what drew me to it. Theme of certain aspects of simplicity. It was just one thing that caught my eye, and that's how I'm now a fan.
Cool. All right. And I guess we'll expand a bit about that later. Nate, real quick, how did you get into it since you got into it before Michael?
I started watching RWBY around season 2. I had a friend of mine who was super deep into it, and he was like, you gotta watch the show, and I was like, dude, your anime recommendations suck every time. So I'm not watching this. No way. There's no way in hell I'm watching this. And everything's a gun.
Whoa! Is that so? It's also a gun.
It's dumb. So whatever. And I watched the first episode, and I was like, oh man, there's a fish hook in my cheek. How do I get this out? And then
You're hooked for life.
Yeah, so I stopped watching just shortly after season 4, but I picked back up again recently, and I'm enjoying it a lot more now than I did back then. So yeah, I'm interested. And then I became a Neptune cosplayer as well.
Nice.
Hell yeah.
He's the one that try to play off as the cool guy that went after Weiss, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hands above the waist.
Ignore him. Yeah, he's dumb.
It's dumb.
I feel so bad for him, man.
That's the one.
I wanted to add on to what you said about how everything's a gun. That's what drew me in the first place. I was talking to a friend. He was telling me about the show, RWBY. And then he was trying his best to just really sell it to me because he knows I'm writing a book and I'm trying to find creative ways to create weapons and stuff. So he starts telling me about, a scythe / high caliber rifle. And then he was telling me about all these weapons and combining typical traditional styled weapons with range stuff. At the time, I thought it was cool because the only kind of weapon that I knew that was a hybrid of other weapons was the gunblade from Final Fantasy, right? And then,
Yeah.
And then I was like, but now suddenly there are gauntlets that shoot bullets out of their, gauntlets. Then I just thought it was super cool. You can use one aspect of the gun, let's say, to increase the momentum in your swing, when RWBY swings her scythe, and I thought that was sick.
There is the notable exception of Jean.
Oh yes, he's the only one that's actually sword and board.
It's just a sword. And then, because to get myself re-familiarized with everything RWBY, I've been playing RWBY Grimm Escape.
Oh,
you can just play as the different characters. But
I wanted to play that
every
too.
character has a ranged attack, except really Jean, who just charges at things.
Yeah, how is the game, by the way? I saw the gameplay and I was like, it could have a lot of potential.
It's not bad, but I just felt development stopped too soon on it, truth be told. Because they released Team Juniper,
Yep.
and that was it. They didn't do anything after that. And I was like, oh, well, that was lackluster.
Sucks.
I thought they were going to put in, Team Sun, maybe. Team, what's it called? Team Coffee, you know what I mean?
Oh,
all
yeah.
this.
I was just laughing because then they also have alternate costumes available. So they have their pajama set, their Beacon Academy set, and then when it reaches the next season, when they change outfits for Team Juniper, there's a notable exception because one member isn't there anymore.
Oh. Spoilers. Is it free, by the way?
No, I think it's $15 or something like that. It might even be on sale because of the Lunar New Year right now.
John, how did you first get introduced to the show?
I just magical happenstance. I found it when the Black trailer came out. So not quite day one, but pretty much at the very beginning. I hadn't even seen anything from Rooster Teeth. It just came upon it on YouTube, and so I've been with it from the start.
Cool. All right, Patricia, how about you? How did you get started?
For me, it was more word of mouth. One of them being actually Michael, and another one being John, and another one being my brother. They were just completely singing high praises about the show. I finally decided. I just came up on my watch list at one point and my recommended, and I was like, okay, you know what? Might as well just check this out. I did. I was like messaging them, and I was like, you guys were absolutely right. I'm absolutely hooked now, and I just kind of kept going with it.
Hell yeah.
All right, so we have a good taste of where we were as fans when we first started watching. Wonder if any of our stances have changed. We'll find out as we talk more. So at the time of recording, the 100th episode was uploaded. What was it, last week or this week? It was today, right?
Today for everybody. For last week for first members.
Okay. So I haven't actually watched it yet. I think only Nate and Michael did.
I haven't seen it yet either.
Oh,
I
okay.
just started watching it yet.
Okay, so just for the context for all the viewers, we're not going to be talking about episode 100 today, but we might, depending on where it goes later on in the future. Okay, so I'm going to say it right here. This podcast is going to be filled with spoilers. This is your chance to tune out if you don't want to be spoiled for anything that is RWBY. So to get started, since we know where we kind of are, let's talk about what we liked about the show. And compared to what we disliked about it, pre-Monty versus post-Monty, like after his unfortunate death, may he rest in peace. Just to start things off, I'll start. So right in the beginning, I think I already talked about it. The best thing I liked about the show was the creativity that I thought that they put into like the unique weapons. Although after looking at enough memes, I realized everything is just a gun. But you know what? That's not a bad thing. Guns by themselves do get kind of stale after a while. So putting a melee aspect to it is kind of cool. Not to mention the choreography. Like with all the fight scenes before, everything was so smooth. It looked like art. I felt like it was full of momentum. There was never like a dull moment. If there was like a group fight, you would quickly go from one fight to the next. That might turn off some people, but I thought that it was very cool, especially when they were doing that competition. I think it was the Vital Festival.
Yeah.
And I thought that was sick because it wasn't just their different combat abilities and like their fighting styles that caught me. It was how they used it together. And then henceforth was born all the ships, like White Rose, and that's all I remember.
Bumblebee.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Nuts and bolts.
Gelato.
And then there was the crazy stadiums and like the fields. It was almost like Pokemon, how they had the different fields for like when they were battling and everything.
Yeah.
And you got the moving platforms, the different terrains. It caught me and it never let go. Well, up until a certain point, but we'll talk about that later. In the beginning, I would say the only thing that turned me off a bit was the original art. Like the original animation style. It was kind of weird, but it was the story that drew me in and kept me. I'm a huge story, guys, if you didn't already know based on my channel. But I love the idea of the Grimm as monsters who basically are attracted to negative feelings or energy, right? And then there is the concept of using dust, like certain kinds of elemental dust to augment your fighting capabilities. Yeah, so we'll start off with Michael.
First, to like echo what Lewis has been saying, with the choreography being just so stellar at the beginning of the series, I always think back to like just finding out that Monty had dancing experience. So like that probably really helped in not only like trying to produce certain kinds of moves, but also like knowing like from where to show certain aspects of each fight. So when you have a certain portion of that fight playing in the scene, what will really like capture the most out of that, so you can get kind of like the most out of that scene. So it really we did see quite the difference from such fluidity in volumes 1 through 3, and then all of a sudden in volume 4 we had a bit more like kind of almost not necessarily robotic, but a bit more clunkier like movement that some had claimed to lose the cool factor. It's gotten better recently, like in volumes like latter half of volume 6 going into now. It's definitely like a huge improvement, but it really showed just like what was going into the series at the beginning. Also really enjoyed the animation style. Looking back, when you think about 2013 and RWBY Volume 1 coming out, even though it was like, put in the poser engine where like most of the crew, we didn't have much experience with it, looking back to that being one of the first forays into 3D style animation for a series, I thought that was spectacular. And then it just continued to get better. Whether or not there would have been like a conversion had Monty still been like here, eventually, I don't know. But like all I know is like there was always that element of evolution and really improvement. And I guess biggest or at least like for me, like I enjoyed the music the most. Like,
oh yeah,
that's probably like a huge draw for me. Whether it be incidental music, music that turned into like almost like singles, like that caliber, or the leitmotifs for each character, like finding their way into either the full length tracks or in the incidental music. Just loved it.
Could you define incidental music for a scrub like me?
Sure. So the way that I would define incidental music is when you have like a scene happening and there's like just like minor or even major interactions, and it's like background music kind of filling the space.
Yes.
So for example, you could go to like Volume 5 when they're eating dinner after RWBY had reunited with Weiss and Yang.
Mm-hmm.
And you just hear that music in the background. It actually made a reprieve, like a reprise in Volume 7 when they were having the cake after receiving their Huntsman and Huntress licenses.
Right.
So that would be like incidental music.
Okay, got you. Cool. I also was a big fan of the music, like I didn't really pay attention to the background, incidental music during the actual episodes themselves, which is kind of interesting because I'm usually all about the soundtracks and everything. A lot of what I listen to for inspiration when I write is like soundtracks from like different movies and shows. What got me was the opening and the endings for the actual episodes. Mm-hmm. I found myself singing to it every time, and like these are the kind of intros and outros I would not skip, and I usually skip. All right, so I'm just gonna go moving clockwise on my screen. Nate, you're next.
I love how fleshed out a lot of the characters feel. We'll get into how I feel about other characters later on. But yeah, when I first started it, it felt like a really poppy shonen series, which I enjoy immensely, but mixed in with like a slice of life, which was odd because like I like the school life aspect of the first couple seasons. It was really, really enjoyable to like see their interactions. And I mean, also dovetailing off of what you guys said already about the fight choreography in seasons 1 through 3, it was insane. It was so good. But I mean, we all know Monty was well known for how good his fight choreography was.
Right.
The pre-Monty era the Monty era, I suppose I should say, is really nostalgic for me because even like the music I feel like was more catchy. Like I don't find myself humming any of the songs from like seasons 5 to recently, but like the first couple seasons, man, I had every song stuck in my head. I was playing it on repeat all the time.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, the recent seasons did change in tone, so
exactly.
It's kind of like trying to sing along to Sound of Silence. I mean, no, that's bad. That's bad. That is a bad example. I love that song. I'll sing it every day. But
I have to think of that.
But it's not poppy like you said before, right? No, I completely agree. Patricia, what do you like about the show?
So what first really like attracted me to the show, first thing was, I mean, as a female, I guess like subconsciously or consciously, I'm looking for like really strong female characters and everything, right? So the first thing, right, like the first person that we see in the combat is RWBY.
Yeah.
So like, and I mean, the choreography, like you guys have been mentioning, has been immensely great, especially in the earlier seasons. And I just saw her weapon and I was like in love immediately. And I just kind of kept myself thinking, and I was like, oh my God, are there more characters like her? Like, are there really cool, like badass female characters? And then Glinda shows up and I'm like, yes, this is going in the right direction for me. So I'm going to keep watching. And I mean, I wasn't disappointed for sure. I don't know. I guess like I also really loved the whole school arc of them being a beacon and everything. It kind of reminded me of Harry Potter, where like they were all kind of like in teams and they all had their like special abilities and everything. And I don't know, there was like that element too of you know, like, ooh, if I was in this world, like, what would I be? Like, what would I
absolutely.
love to be, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, exactly. Like, I mean, I'm a Hufflepuff through and through, like, proud to say
be
it.
fair, Glinda does kind of look like a witch.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. And yeah, I think that was just something that really hooked me. And then I think everything, too, with the choreography was great, because, like, I just found myself saying, like, damn, every time, like, someone landed something, like a hit, and I just wanted that to continue.
And you can feel the impact, too, right?
Exactly, yeah. It was pretty impactful.
I like how specifically in RWBY you have like different archetypes for characters as well. I actually find myself comparing them to the Blade Breakers from Beyblade a lot. You have like the stoic character with like Blake, and you have the happy-go-lucky careless leader RWBY, and then you have the hot-headed Yang, and who is it? The really cool nonchalant. I think that was. I think I got that mixed up. I think Weiss would be the more stoic one, eh?
No, Blake. No, I think you're pretty on point with Blake. Yeah, Blake was definitely like at the beginning very, very stoic. Very
so Weiss is the snob, the snobby rival.
Weiss was like the snobby, yeah, for sure. Yeah.
I want to add on to what you guys said. I actually love slice of life anime, and you know, but let's be real. There are times in a regular slice of life anime where it does get a bit dull, and there's enough action in this that it bridges them together. And then it's my favorite scene is the food fight scene. I think that's everyone's favorite though.
It's like there's a perfect balance of slice of life and
yeah. They take it so seriously, and then it's just like
But also not. Like, they know how to play, they know how to be really playful with it, too, which was really cool.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Waste of food, too, though.
Yeah, I know. Those stale loaves of bread, though, got me.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you had, like, chicken or turkey.
John, what got you into it, and what do you like about the show?
It was really the combination of what everyone's said. The choreography, and of course, everything with guns. Definitely selling point. But yeah, especially at the very beginning with all that music, I remember, because early on, before Michael was part of the choir, I would always talk with another choir member, Liam, about it, and we would just try our best to just sing in falsetto all those songs. And
yeah, the ranges are pretty high, man. It was what was the composer's name? Jeff
Williams.
Jeff Williams, and then it was with his sister that was singing too, right?
His daughter, Casey Lee Williams.
Oh, daughter. Oh, oops. She can go pretty high too.
Phenomenal range. If you hear me talk about RWBY and I talk about the music, I instantly start just like gushing over how godlike her ability is. Like,
it's also the lyrics too. You guys listen to Bad Luck Charm? I'm like, ooh, this makes me so sad. Yeah. Oh, there's like there's one line. I need to look it up so I don't butcher it.
I'm no one's listening.
I feel like offhand, just what I was thinking today, it probably isn't canonical, but because her singing voice, Casey Lee Williams, also is the voice of Weiss, does that make Weiss RWBY's bard?
Whoa.
Well, technically it's her singing voice, so I guess
wait, like really?
I feel like
Weiss's singing voice.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and you can absolutely like.
I feel like you can make a theory, an argument
when she's
that
singing, you can.
Yeah, she's just singing the story of the show.
Change RWBY to a musical, and then like you can absolutely run with that.
I'd watch.
Oh yeah, heck yeah. Is that the one that's like supposed to be alluding to Crow's perspective?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That was like it hit hard.
Yeah.
I think this whole concept is really cool. I love how everyone has like their unique semblances that really bring out their personality. His is just bad luck. But not just for him, just everyone. Yeah. Like, he technically would be so overpowered to the point where it's sad. For people who are watching who don't know what we're referring to, semblances, they're kind of like this magical ability that stems from like your personality. They can use it in combat or to do other things. For example, Jean is able to heal people with his own aura.
He amplifies aura.
Oh, he amplifies aura.
Yeah.
Wait, I thought I saw him heal people too.
So when it first came up, they explained it in the show. He wasn't healing; he was just amplifying. When it first came up with Weiss, she was just amplifying her own ability to heal herself.
That makes sense,
And
because then we see later how he was helping
Ren.
like calm everyone down with his semblance.
Yeah.
I think it was Patricia. I think it was what you said. It makes you really start to wonder how you would be in that universe, in how you would role play if you were there, like what your semblance would be. I was actually so into it at one point that I started doing a fan fiction with a friend. It's written in a style. I don't know if you guys go on writing forums or anything. It starts off with like a certain concept, and then everyone participating writes from the perspective of their character. So then we just kind of take turns writing passages, and then like a story unfolds. And it was really cool. We ended up making a team called Team Almond. As the series went on, were you hooked to the point where you wanted to keep watching, or did it somehow fizzled away during the middle or in the end? What was your take? Let's start with John. We're going counterclockwise.
From the early on, it had enough momentum for at least me personally, where I kept watching it. And it was only up until volume 7 that it started to somewhat fizzle for me. So then I took this break, and then when I was approached by you, the Mooing Mouse, and from Michael,
yes,
that I got back into it, that I was rewatching it, caught back up, and then dove into volume 8.
Oh, you lasted pretty long then, eh?
Yeah.
That's yeah. That was a lot of volumes to like sit through.
I pinned my hopes and dreams on these characters getting better and seeing where their character arcs would hopefully reascend to.
So you're like me then. I feel like we might have an issue of closure. Like, we already invested so much time into getting involved in the universe and the story, we kind of want to know where it ends.
Yeah, that's sort of where I was too. Yeah, I didn't last as long as John did, but yeah, like I think for me it was like I kind of just wanted to see where it would play out and where they would take it. Because I mean, like we've all mentioned before, it's just like how much work and creativity was put into it, and what was displayed was so amazing that there's no way that we couldn't just finish and see through it. Yeah, I think that for me, that was what kept me going and everything too.
Absolutely. The thing is that I kept watching for exactly what I just explained before. I have an issue with closure. But also there was like that one mystery in the back of my mind that I just really wanted solved. Actually, two. One was the mystery behind like the silver eyes, like Ruby's silver eyes. Like they kept referencing it, but then we don't even get little tidbits of it or anything. It's just like a few episodes here or there. Oh, special eye powers, right? Sharingan. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, but then it just never came, and I didn't have like a satisfying answer for that, right? And then eventually it became watered down to me wanting to find out how they're gonna, get rid of Salem. Look, if no one can kill her, how are they gonna deal with her? Are they gonna put her in jail? And just like, it doesn't. I want to see where this goes, but at the same time, I think it might have been maybe a volume after Monty died that I started really not enjoying it as much. It really felt like some of the themes were like forced or shoehorned into the story that we were forced to now like to care about. There was a while where each episode was just so slow. It reminded me of in Harry Potter, I think it was Order of the Phoenix, where they spend like a few chapters just camping and dealing with their emotions, and I'm like, move on. Or like, I am one of the few people that read the Twilight book set unwittingly. But I think it was the second book, New Moon, where they just spend like a few pages with just like a whole month on the whole page, and I'm like, what a waste of paper. But that's how much it dragged on. The whole book was just a drag. It was just, I get they were trying to get into like the main character's depression and everything, but that's how it felt. And then it really slowed things down to the point where like, I don't care anymore. Not to mention, like, they took all the memes and the shipping from the beginning and they just went like all ham. It didn't feel natural at all how they're just kind of forcing relationships together. And then like in the beginning, I feel like there was some natural thing going on between like Blake and Sun.
Yeah. They definitely put so much time and effort into that, and now it's basically Sun who?
Yeah. And then now they're trying to like force Yang and Blake together, or I don't know, maybe subtly, not subtly. It's just
that relationship is so unhealthy too. It's
so awful. Toxic, very toxic.
I mean, Blake. I want to say Blake, not as much. But Yang, super toxic. Either that relationship is going to end up in the gutter, they're going to hate each other.
Yeah.
This section right here, right now, that's happening is going to fix their relationship.
I'm so happy to hear someone say that.
It's something that's boiled my blood about the RWBY fandom for years. I'm like, oh my god, Bumblebee! Oh my god, Bumblebee! And I'm like, wait, what? They've never set them up to be in a relationship. I don't understand. And then they're in a relationship now. I'm like, what?
What? Yeah. And it's not even they don't even outright come out and say it. They're just like, oh, with there's some feelings here, but you're not sure what.
The thing is too with Monty's like initial vision was that they wouldn't have any relationships within the groups, like within RWBY, and I loved it that way. Like I love the whole sisterhood kind of like teamwork thing. I don't like the pairings within the group, and Blake and Yang is like just the worst pair you could have had in that group.
Yeah. Like the whole thing that I loved about like their dynamic is like they had different combinations, you had in terms of fighting. I don't mean like romantic pairs or anything, but that was the appeal. They were complementary to each other. Nate's, I'm assuming you just loved it from start to finish, or am I wrong?
So I actually fell off around season 4, just after I think the final fight of that season. I was like, you know what? I'm okay. I think I'm alright. Like I don't really need to watch the season 4 combat was so lackluster. Season 4 was just really lackluster to me. So I was like, you know what? Maybe I'm alright with this. Maybe I'm gonna let it simmer. And then because Michael hit me up and said, "Hey, do you want to jump on a podcast?" I was like, "Well, I guess there's no better time than now to catch back up to RWBY." So here we are. And I actually do not regret it at all. Like I enjoyed what I watched. We've got some points to talk about later, but I did enjoy what I saw after season 4. Excuse me.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I guess we'll go into a little bit more later. Michael, why don't you talk about your thoughts?
For me, like when I got into like watching like in full, I think it was around when volume 4 or 5 was coming out. So me not knowing any better, I decided to like watch the current episodes as they were coming out, and then I went back to watch one all the way. And I think maybe for that reason, I actually that probably might have been the big reason for why I stayed like without feeling the need to like drop the series. Going in not really knowing much about the history, and then finding out about what had happened over the course of the first 3 volumes, like it kind of instilled like a desire to, not for closure's sake necessarily, but for the knowledge that something big will be shown to us in punches kind of thing. Every year we're going to see a lot of like progression in some way, shape, or form, because they're not just going to take like end of volume 3 into volume 4 sitting down. They're going to rise from this, and they've kept this like almost like a mantra: move onward, not there yet kind of thing. Keep moving forward, upwards, like looking upwards kind of thing. So that recurring theme among the crewbie and the writers, like wanting to continue Monty's dream, like I thought that was really like inspiring, like for me to see that. So I did believe that there would be like, in a big way, great things to come, but I had to be patient myself kind of thing, and I think it more than paid off. And if anything, volumes 4 and 5, watching them was a premonition to say, if I was that impressed without knowing anything else about the series, about what happened before, like you can only go up from here. Not to say that volume 4 and 5 were like absolute trash kind of things. They weren't. They were not. Like, but to say that others were better than that, and your standard is already so high thanks to them, like, it was really like exciting for me kind of thing, and I just couldn't wait for the next volume to come out, and then start waiting every week kind of thing. So
it's kind of like, as you said, I think the show in general needed a balance, because it started off with like a happy-go-lucky, really fast-paced series, and then suddenly just had to slow down. I thought there was nothing wrong with that. Any show, any story, it can't just be like the same tempo all the way through. It's going to get stale, it's going to get boring, you're going to be desensitized. So there's nothing wrong with the change in tone. I don't want to say it's too abrupt. I want to say they dragged it on a bit too long. That's my personal
take. It was the pacing, truly it was.
Yeah. Because they spent like another like 3 or 4 volumes just with that same tone, and then there's no progress. Like, there's no payoff to like what you're investing your time into, right? Yeah, but I agree in that I was also kind of invested from the beginning, as Michael was. Also not for closure, it's just that it was a good story. Okay, so since we've already talked about it at length, let's go into a little bit into more detail of what you guys thought about the plot itself. Now, we talked about the tempo and everything. Is there anything particular that you guys thought was could be improved?
Well, at least from the very beginning, like you can sense that shift of tone, of pace, where it eases you into the story, into the characters. Then, 4 and 5 comes to kind of a screeching halt. And then around season 7, where I stopped, everything just happened all at once.
Yeah.
Which, at least at the time, I feel like also the difference between watching it week by week, episode by episode, I felt that it ramped up way too fast. Like, when it was first coming out, I was talking to Michael about it, how odd it was that all of this suddenly happened in Volume 7. I mean, now the equivalent is probably something like pulling a Game of Thrones and just throwing all the plot development all at once to try and end or come to a certain end, a certain goal that you had in mind. But also at the same point, because of this podcast, I rewatched everything from the beginning. I watched all of it, minus the side story building kind of episodes that they put in between the episodes they had in the very beginning.
Yeah, the story of Revan and stuff.
Yeah, it didn't seem as problematic when I watched it all at once, when I fit pretty much 8 volumes in the span of 3 days.
Oof.
So I just watched everything back to back.
Jeez.
Oh, that's commitment, man. Does it help if you watch everything back to back like that? If you marathon it?
I think it does, to be honest. I totally agree with you, John. Because I did very much a similar thing where I just binged 4 seasons in like a day, and I was like, "Yep, this is what we're doing." And it like, I feel like helped mitigate some of that. Felt like a drip feed almost of like content. Whereas like now I'm like, all right, this is all happening at once. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you know what helped me in between episodes is that they did release chibi episodes that I thought were adorable.
That's so good.
I love those.
Just slightly different tone from where the show is now, but more in line where the show started.
I'm actually more invested into the chibi show.
Although,
Our beacon fix.
Yeah, I feel like they killed chibi though.
I haven't watched anything recently, but what do you mean?
As in they've had 3 seasons of it, and then they just haven't had new stuff that's caught up with the new events, things like that. Because that was what I immediately binged after catching up to current episodes.
That's too bad. At least Pyrrha was still alive in the chibi episodes, you know.
Yeah.
She was a character I loved, man.
Yeah, like even that, rewatching things from the beginning, maybe the mix of nostalgia and interest and how much time and emotions that I put into the characters, that I really felt those emotional beats in the story, compared to now where everything's just shoehorned in to fit a particular plot to reach an end goal, and you don't have the time to spend on these characters emotional wise.
So I want to go off on what you were just talking about there with the introduction of like the maidens, with the introduction of Salem and Oz as like godly figures. Do you think it was kind of out of left field, kind of out of nowhere? Do you feel like there could have been a more natural progression to like a maybe more believable result?
Part of me wants to say no, but like hindsight being 2020, like there's so many themes that like the whole overarching Wizard of Oz theme is like so like Glinda Goodwitch and Oz, and then Salem being the Wicked Witch of the West, and having flying monkeys, and having the Cowardly Lion and the Tin Man. It's very, very on the nose. It's a little too on the nose for my liking, at least in terms of that. But like like I said, I do enjoy the overarching story. It's just that one plot thread that's like, you couldn't have chose something else.
Going off of Nate's point, like we do know, like if you delve into like the history behind the series, like and its inspiration, it's kind of like a hybrid between a bunch of like anime that Monty had the writers at the time watch almost as like prep work, but also like they harmonized like anime themes with just fairy tales upon fairy tales kind of thing.
Yeah.
So like I get that. I haven't necessarily like read into the themes behind like certain events or characters or their weapons or like the stories behind those, because I'm usually too captivated by everything else that's happening at that time. But I never, at least from my perspective, I never thought it was like being introduced for the sake of we must have a fairy tale, but rather like they try to find something that will kind of mesh with what has been there. Actually, if I were to make like a guess or conjecture now, I was reading about Volume 7's development with Ironwood and his ASOPs, his team of ACE operatives.
Yeah.
One big deviation, two big deviations. First and foremost, like the team did not have 4 members, but instead had 5.
Mm-hmm.
And they weren't named after a color. It was ACE operative. Like James Ironwood had favored efficacy over certain conventions that Ozpin had tried to foster over however many years before the start of the series. And it's kind of ironic that the Ace operatives, obviously, if you think about it, it's an allusion to Aesop's fables. Fables usually have a moral at the end. It's almost like it's trying to have that kind of like irony. Like if they were to come up on top, then your resolution would be, Ironwood was right to defy Ozpin at that time for those reasons. Or if they don't, then you can take it the other way. So I guess like that plot building like does work in certain ways that, at least for me, like I can pick up on stuff that I would immediately appreciate.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't necessarily speak to the stuff that I haven't picked up on. And also going to what John and Nathan have been saying with this is departing from the shoehorning aspect of themes, but the fact that I usually tend to recall certain things just out of memory about what happened in the past volumes in relation to particular scenes that are happening now, I think that's almost like a similar notion of having to rewatching the series in a binge style format kind of thing, to have all of that information to be able to see the grand scheme of things. So I think if I were doing that, I'd probably if I did that properly, watch every single episode at once, the themes would probably just jump out at me, and I don't think I probably would have seen it as just shoving those kinds of ideas into your face just for the sake of doing it.
You know what? Now that you bring up Aesops and everything, I actually appreciate the layers that was attempted there. And actually, it makes me feel a little bit better about the series, that they're not just throwing random stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks. I only now just realized that they actually put in some thought, and whoops. But that's nice. It's nice that they're not just randomly doing that.
Yeah, the Aesops are a really cool ass team in general. Like I really like their fairy tale theming being based on Aesop's fables. Super cool.
Okay.
When I think about sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
When I think about more of the plot, I think about, basically the two people who started where this world is right now, and that goes back to Salem and Ozpin, right? So they're basically the ones that are driving the events. People are not really aware of what they're doing kind of in the background because they've been alive for so much longer than everyone else. Right. They're basically kind of driving the plot forward in a way. So looking back and talking about going back to the maidens and everything, they were basically created by with Ozpin kind of giving his powers to these 4 people who I guess he thought were worthy of having his powers. And I'm guessing his motivations for that were so that once Salem, or once the artifacts are all brought together and the gods come back to judge the world again, then he has these maidens that have been kind of doing all of the police work, I guess, or the maintaining the goodness in the world. And then whereas Salem is doing her part also to kind of make that not happen, and I guess go in her favor so that she can finally feel the sweet release of death and not have to be plagued by the curse anymore. I'm assuming that's the whole thing, right? But everything that they're doing in the background is driving everything forward from what we're seeing with the main characters and all of the supporting characters as well.
Mm-hmm. Weren't the maidens his daughters?
Yeah, the original ones were his daughters.
Okay, that I don't know if that's been confirmed. That's at least though. Implied. It's implied, but people have also said that his daughters were killed after he tried to take them away from Salem, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the original maidens were actually people that, or sisters that reminded him of his daughters, and they were also like really good people. So that's why he gave them the powers, and they all like they all kind of resembled like the Four Seasons and everything. Yeah, but I'm not sure. Yeah,
I feel like it would have made the series a lot more, I don't know, impactful if they were actually his daughters. Imagine like trusting your children to be able to keep your wife in check, to keep their mother in check, and then having the mother try to kill them for the gifts that you've given them. It's nuts. It's dark, right?
I do, however, believe that like what Patricia was saying was that it was like four like separate ladies. Like if I look back, it was either like I think it was like a RWBY like remnant lore story, like so it was like a separate from the episodes that was mentioned. And one thing that I guess striking to me when I was looking at Jin's story, the children, like one of the daughters had come up to them to show them that show Osmond and Salem, Ozma time and Salem that she could perform magic. So it wasn't as either Osmond had described or Crow talking about the story, that it was like Osmond giving them a choice or giving it to them like in some form of like a formal setting, but rather it was like a spontaneous thing. So I thought it wasn't the same exact connection, but you know, I still think like what you're saying, Lewis, is very true about the idea of with the idea of that family unit and them trying, like, you know, being 6 individuals at that time on the face of the world, the remainder of the world that can perform magic kind of thing, and then just Salem got rid of 4 of them, and then the 5th was fated to return kind of thing. So
I'm gonna say something, and you guys can feel free to correct me if I'm on the wrong track, but I feel like a lot of this could have been avoided if, you know, Ozpin? I forgot his original name. What was it? Ozma. Yeah. If Ozma and Salem, you know, just lived a happy life and he didn't actually do what the god told him to do, I feel like most of the things would be okay. Like their job was just to, like, you know, help establish peace so that when the gods come back, they don't destroy them, right? If I remember that correctly. Like, what was the problem? Like, Salem found out that they also wanted to kill her? What was it again?
So, I might be talking out of my ass, and correct me if I'm wrong, but if I recall correctly, what happens is Ozma dies.
Okay.
And she wants not Cinder. Why am I drawing a blank on her name?
Salem,
thank you. Salem wants to bring him back, and so she goes to the god of light, and she's like, please bring him back, and he's like, can't do that, man. So then she goes to the god of darkness, and she's like, can you do it? And he's like, can't do that, man. So she gets pissed, she's like just pissed off, and like I think lies to them to get him revived, if I recall correctly.
I'm pretty sure she manipulates them and a bunch of people to come a war against them, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, so she lies to both the gods, and basically, like, she sucks up to the god of darkness and is like, I tried this with your brother, and he's like, nah. So I'm gonna, like, I know. Oh no, actually, she didn't say that. She said I went to you first, and then she's like, because I knew you could do it.
Yes,
and then he's like, he's like, good choice. So then he does it, and this is like the funny part where like Osmond's kind of alive, and then he's dead again. Alive is dead because they're fighting over their laws and everything.
Yeah.
And then so she gets upset and basically tries to like rally a bunch of people against the gods.
But when they decided to leave, they wanted Salem to be continuous, they wanted to punish her by keeping her alive and away from her soulmate, right? And then they put Ozma through like this reincarnation cycle. But I thought I was under the impression they gave him the goal, the quest to try to fix everything. And then when she found out that he was alive, she was irritated that he was still doing the gods' jobs. I mean, what they were bidding him to do.
She didn't know.
Oh, I remember. Salem wanted to teach magic to everyone, right? Or was it? She wanted to teach magic to everyone, and he didn't.
She was using the idea that, like, you know, with her and Ozma now reincarnated being the only 2 that could wield magic, so the old race as it was, that they could rule over the current world as it is. this place has no need for gods anymore, kind of thing. They with her harboring that resentment, and the fact that technically the brothers, gods of light and darkness, did technically abandon the world.
Yes.
So they were not going to interfere with it. They washed their hands proverbially, clean of any responsibility, but did offer Ozma that chance. So she said, "Screw it. We don't need them. We can just do whatever we want because we're the only ones that have superpowers."
So I did quickly look up the wiki. Yeah, and then Salem was the one that murdered Ozma, and then they reincarnated and they're just pissed off at each other. It's just one long feud. Yeah.
My ex is such a dick.
That aspect was always interesting to me because they effectively removed magic from the world, and the only people who have magic are people either that got it from Ozpin, previously Ozma, and Salem, who really doesn't give it to anyone but just keeps it for herself.
Right.
And then the only remnants, the closest thing they have is dust.
Yeah.
But which isn't in and of itself magic.
I had to quickly remind myself what the artifacts were, and then does anyone know what they do when they put together?
They summon the gods.
Yeah.
Oh, that makes more sense.
They built that all up that once they were brought all together, they would resummon the gods, and then they would judge whether humanity was worth saving if life would just be wiped out.
I thought there was a time limit. I thought they were going to come regardless, but now they can just summon them at will?
Yeah, the condition was for them all to be brought back together.
Oh, I see.
So it was only when the time is right, when humanity is at that place that they want to be kind of properly judged and then I guess saved or be re-embraced by their gods.
Right, right. Do you guys think it's possible for a maiden to be a dude?
I asked this from my brother, and he said,
I don't see why not.
He said it's not. I forgot. I think he mentioned that it was explicitly stated that this could not happen. It would actually just go to the last female or something that was interacted with the previous.
That seems kind of unfair.
Yeah. Gender equality.
Yeah, because I think one character in particular that I thought would benefit from some maiden powers would probably be Jean. I mean, the guy has been going through so much hardship. Why not give him? Yeah. Oh, actually, no. It could be also a burden that you have these abilities as well, right? Let's talk about the Grimm. The Grimm was something I originally thought was very cool because they had a different variety. You had the Ursa, you have the big whale. They call it Leviathan, and then they have So what do you think about how the Grimm have evolved over time, over the different seasons?
For me, I love it. They're so cool now. I used to think they were so lame. Low-key, I was like, man, they're all just Ursa or Beowulf. Or the Warthogs. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. But now all of the really cool new Grimm, the Apathies and
yes.
Oh yes. Yo, they're terrifying.
So terrifying.
The Knuckly, the Leviathan, that big flying one, dude. The big flying whale is so cool.
Monstra.
Oh man, when they saw the what was the name of the whale? What'd you say?
Monstra.
Monstra. When it was attacking, it's like a Godzilla villain. Especially when it was attacking. What was it? Mantle.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Vomited up more Grimm. I was like, oh no.
Yeah. Onto Atlas. Onto the edge of Atlas.
I don't know if you guys watched ReZero. It kind of reminds me of the whales in ReZero, except cooler, much cooler. And it kind of doubles as a big airship too, weren't they? Just walking around inside, living inside its gut.
There's even dogs for airships kind of thing.
Like Jabu Jabu from what's it called? Ocarina of Time.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, and it didn't help in the beginning that they kind of made Grimm almost seem like cannon fodder. They all died in one shot, right? Mm-hmm. And now they're insane. Now you have the intellectual ones. One talks, one flies. Oh, actually, no, several fly, but the same one talks and can coordinate other Grimm.
Yeah,
the fact that
reinforcements.
The fact that it can speak is awful. I don't love that.
Yeah. And when it was using Oscar as like a meat shield, and like
Yep.
I hate when bad guys use other people as a meat shield. I low key just, if I was there in that moment, I would not be above, you know, just giving them a flesh wound and just having the bullet go right through and hit them in the face. I mean, I get that Oz is in there, but honestly, Oscar has been, I don't know, Oscar as a character, I get he has a lot of development like he needs to go through, but I just feel like he's wasting a lot of time for me personally on the screen. I don't know if you guys feel the same way. But
I get why like it feels like that. I don't know, like he's the youngest character right now, and he needs development because he's going through so much emotion and like so many like things that like a 10-year-old should be going through.
I actually
by the way,
very bad for him.
8,000-year-old man inside of you.
Yes.
They keep picking and choosing exactly what it means to be a child and just how helpless
100%.
each child is. Because you start the series with Ruby being the youngest, and then she suddenly has superpowers, and then she just gets better, and then they all kind of take a power dive, and now it's slowly being built back up. But they have not been nice to Oscar.
No, they have not.
Not in the slightest.
Yeah.
To be fair, I like Ruby being a little bit more mature, but I do miss her happy-go-lucky aspect, and they do kind of leak it here or there, but I feel like if they're gonna make her be a little bit more mature, I don't think she should be going from 0 to 100 every now and then. I feel like there should be like a gradual like leaking, a hinting that she's still in there, right? Because there's a little bit of a kid inside all of us, especially her. Except for Oscar, he has an 8,000-year-old spirit inside him. But that's one thing I wanted to bring up. I feel bad for every person that Ozma reincarnates into. Like, how is he gonna reconcile with Oscar? He's like, yeah, so I'm with you now. I'm your new roomie. Live with it.
Yeah,
it's that plus the fact, by the way, you won't be around anymore eventually.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
This is now my house.
Yeah.
You're just renting it for a little bit longer.
Yeah.
It's kind of fucked up.
How do they decide? Does the spirit just randomly find the next compatible?
Yeah.
Is it random?
Mm-hmm.
Like there's no compatibility whatsoever.
The maidens, if they don't have a direct female that they were thinking of after when they're about to die, and it's like a man or someone who's too old, and it goes into someone randomly.
Oh.
I wonder if all of Oscar's or Ozpin's or Ozma, his reincarnations. I wonder if like all of them have like a similar name to him, because like Oscar has a similar name. We don't know anyone else's name. I wonder if that's how they choose.
They kept building it on the fact that they were similar. They had like similar ideas, how they went about life, things like that. More so than I guess it probably isn't just by similar names.
This is a name, yeah.
You know, we've been saying how Ozma's spirit is affecting Oscar's personality, and eventually he'll take over and it'll just be Oz, right? But we don't think about how maybe they're saying their spirits are merging. Maybe this 4,000-year-old man is actually more of the other people he's already reincarnated into, and it's not so his spirit's dominating them. What if all the other spirits are kind of like watering it down, maybe? So like it's less of him and more of the sense of a general, like the collective or consensus. Yeah, collective. Like almost like a hive mind, but like in one person.
Kind of like Avatar? Kind of like the Avatar?
Yeah, except, you know, the Avatar, at least they still gave him the independence to think for himself, right?
It actually also makes me think of like My Hero Academia, like with
with Deku.
One for all kind of thing. Like so the previous wielders, right?
Yes.
So, but the current wielder still has his or her autonomy kind of thing.
Yeah.
So
I would rather that. I always thought that notion very cool. Let's end it off with one last topic. What do you think is gonna happen next? I know they're already like bordering on like war, right? Who do you think is gonna die next? What do you think is gonna happen? Do you think it's gonna be at least a little bit of a happy ending? I know it's not gonna end anytime soon, but like, what do you think is gonna happen?
Penny's dying again for sure. It's gonna suck, and it's gonna be such a kick in the gut. But
you're gonna put money on that?
I would be willing to put $10 on it.
So you're saying you want her? Do you want her to die again?
I don't want her to die.
You don't want to die again, yeah.
I just like, you know, when something's gonna happen, but you don't want it to.
Yes.
Yeah.
They're like, well, this is my life now.
Penny's character is the most consistent. I love her.
I love Penny.
I love her.
Salutations.
Like she, her voice actress Samantha Ireland, like she sold it so well, like in the like Volume 8, Episode 5, like just her desperation, like trying to keep the Coliseum afloat, like just all these emotions all at once. Oh man,
that's another thing that's been amazing. The evolution of voice work in the series has been amazing. The quality has done nothing but go up.
I can always appreciate good voice acting. What I really hated was how I forgot the name of with the old guy that didn't like Ironwood, that he hacked into Penny's one single blade. I thought that was kind of unbelievable. Like, you would think that he hacked into one of her little floating blades in order to get into her system and like mess with her programming, right?
No, Watts, right? Yeah. Watts, right? Yeah. Oh, yeah, that was messed up.
I don't understand that. Because if the blade was that far that she wouldn't be able to control it, how would hacking one blade all the way over there suddenly transmit over to her?
It was based on like the explanation of how her blades, like, and what Penny's parts in that sense work in similarly to, like, to the towers. I want to say, right, or at least like Amity to, right, like the
I think so.
CCT towers.
Yeah.
So if all of them are online, like they're all like you can communicate with
I see.
But the thing is, I believe that was why. But
I think that's a plot hole.
Basically, they just need better IT technicians.
No, I think that's a plot hole, because at one point, I'm pretty sure the only reason they got a hold of that blade was that they cut the wire, and then right? Doesn't that imply that she needs the wires to actually control those floating blades? Therefore, it's not really remotely controlled through any like wavelength or anything. So isn't this a plot hole? Therefore, they would have to reattach it on a string for it to actually get hacked, wouldn't they?
I feel like in a small sense, yes, but it was also like it was part of her. Like, compared to other characters where weapons are secondary, it was literally a part of her, attached to her, like part of her body, because again, she's not, she's a robot.
Right.
Yeah.
I think the wires are just kind of there to make sure that they stay attached to her, but like I think the fact that they're like upright basically whenever she's in combat ready mode is like, I guess that kind of indicates that she's able to control them like in their position, right? Their orientation.
Right.
Yeah. So I don't know.
This kind of reminds me of Supernatural, where they had that one episode where they kind of broke the fourth wall. They're like, every time they're about to fight some creature, they usually end up dropping their blade somehow, and they just started wondering, what if we just have them attached to a bungee on their wrist? Then it wouldn't happen, right? That's what I'm imagining when you talked about the strings on the blades just now. Like, they're just there to keep her attached to them.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess that also kind of makes sense. I actually do like. Now, I really feel like, we've already discussed this at length, but I do feel like things are really starting to ramp up. I mean, they got it after they introduced all the Grimm, like, invading Mantle and everything.
Oh, yeah.
Do you think that RWBY's plan was actually is good to, like, inform everyone on the planet that, oh, look, bad guys here, we should probably get together and not freak out? Or do you think there was another alternative that probably would have been better to unite people?
I think, given the circumstances, personally, she did the right thing, because they were backed into a corner essentially at that point, right?
Yeah.
Because Ironwood was gonna just bounce, and they need the scepter.
Yes.
Right. So if he's just gonna step and not be there anymore and take part of what's required to save the world, away with him, they have to do something to stop it.
Right. So it's more like they didn't really have a choice then.
I think so, at least personally.
You know what I like? There is a consistent theme that they introduced in the recent episodes. I like how they're still showing that there's still discrimination between people and the faunus, or even people with other people. Like, your place is being invaded. You don't have any other place to go. Would you rather stay here and die in your social status and your class, or would you rather, humble yourself a bit and maybe survive somewhere else, right?
Yeah.
That's a theme that I also appreciate, the difference between like social classes and all that. Okay, did anyone have any final thoughts on RWBY before we sign off?
For me, in terms of predictions for the future, while I can't speak to what may happen, there's in my mind, not just for like a money sake or like whatever, like marketing reasons, but for how big the plot has gotten, and it seems far too early for the big bad, Salem, to be definitively defeated so soon, right? And people have been talking about the idea that for the most part, you can almost subdivide the series as it has been into like 3 volumes just by virtue of where most of the characters and focus have been. So like the continent of Central, like Sanas with like Vale being volumes 1 through 3, and then Anima for 4 to 6, and then finally Solitas for 7 to present. But with just so much more things that we would want to be seeing within the main world as it had been designed by Monty, I feel like, for example, let's say like 12 volumes may not be their end point. There might be like more things happening in terms of, like, let's say like a Great War. They have to they have to resolve the plot point with the gods and like so many other things, right? Like, so I don't know if like this would be counting 4 years ahead. I don't think that will be the end of the series. If it keeps the traction that they have and it grows from here, especially with seeing like the evolution of the artistry, the music, the voice acting, like everything just being so phenomenal, like with all the work that they put into with something that has, admittedly like very limited running time. It's just so hard to put everything into this kind of like product. Like you'll need a lot of material, right, to get that far to see certain things done. Otherwise, it will really feel rushed, and I would hate to see that.
Yeah, they have a lot of loose ends that they need to tie up, right? And you know what? If the viewership recently didn't go up, I feel like they would have ended it within 1 or 2 volumes just because, cut their losses. But I feel like with all the development that happened recently, well, at least for me personally, and I feel like a lot of us here, it sparked a lot of interest, and the hype is kind of growing, right? I do wish they kind of ended the volume. Oh, no, did the volume end? Are we in a new volume now? Sorry, what?
We just recently hit the halfway point.
Okay. All right, cool. Because I was so afraid that in December that was the end of the whole volume, and I'm like, that's it? Yeah, so it obviously has me on a cliffhanger, and yeah. Okay, yeah. So with that, oh yeah, sorry, you had a thought?
Oh yeah, sure. So I think for me, like what I'm predicting is that people are going to start questioning, the people that they've been following, their motives. Like for example, I'm kind of alluding to Winter. Like what I'm kind of hoping will also happen is because like Winter kind of let her sister and her friends go, even though they technically like broke the law or they went against Ironwood's orders. But I think what's going to be really, really cool to see is how they progress that a little bit further, because now you're starting to kind of see that Winter's starting to question Ironwood's motives a little bit.
Oh,
and his methods, right? So, and I love the Schnee sisters like dynamic, and I want to see more of the Schnees for sure. Yeah.
And I love how they made Ren try to bring out these characters too, where he's been like all gloom and doom for the past couple of volumes, and it's suddenly, now he sees all the conflict. Haha.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so that's going to be really interesting to see how everyone's kind of motivation starts to shift a little bit, and maybe like even their beliefs start to be questioned a little bit further as well.
I personally feel like Salem's not gonna, like the resolution isn't about ending Salem or imprisoning her. I somehow feel like maybe it's gonna have something to do with the new villain being someone else. Perhaps even Cinder. They are building up Cinder's character to be almost like rebellious. She's a bit hungry for power. She's obviously not liking Salem. So she's either going to be the one that helps to somehow reign in Salem and just end her rule, or just take over entirely, because you don't see any good left in her either, right? She's already part Grimm. So I feel like it has something to do with that, because for the life of me, cannot come up with any solution on how they're going to kill Salem, who's supposedly immortal. They already drove that point away with the big guy who said he tried to kill her over and over, but she kept coming back, right? I feel like this kind of reminds me. I don't know if you guys watch Star Wars, but there's a Legends book where they go into the life of Darth Plagueis, who supposedly mastered immortality, right? And in that book, Sidious ends up killing him by just destroying his body, his vessel, over and over again, so that his soul couldn't come back, his spirit couldn't come back to the point where he just kind of gave up and quit. So I feel like I don't think RWBY is gonna get that violent and dark to get rid of Salem. I feel like it's gonna have something to do with Cinder, maybe. I don't know. That's just what I think.
Part of me feels like they're gonna try and purify Salem, if you know what I mean.
Oh.
Like, not necessarily kill Salem, but the way to stop Salem is to bring her over to our side and make her good again, and see like there is goodness out there. There can be good. There can be hope.
Yeah, even with the worst of the worst can be shown that pathway.
Yeah,
I hope to God that she just doesn't change her views from one conversation with the main character RWBY. I really hope that doesn't happen.
Please don't talk about
I'm done with that. Like, I feel like they can talk, that's fine, but I feel like something has to lead up to that. Maybe she accidentally falls into like some holy lake, and then now she's more viable to reason. You know?
Yeah. But there's got to be something. I 100% agree with you.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, from the characters that already exist, it's possible that they'll just rely on the gods. Like, that will probably be the end play, that they'll have to remove her immortality, at the very least, just that, and then the other characters deal with it. Or that just might be their clean slate. That they'll just take her out completely, and they might reset humanity again. Maybe something like that. Although there are so many open ends, especially with all the other characters, that at least at this point, like all your Neptunes and Suns, that they just introduced, like in the very beginning, with the fall of Beacon, where they brought all the characters back, and it was great. But now you have all these characters around the world, and they've been missing, and we have no idea what they've been doing. I don't know if they'll ever bring them back in.
I hope so.
That's one thing, actually. Like, going off of that point, there is, I don't know if it's like a comic or a novel series, but it follows Team Coffee.
Yes, that comic. Oh my god, it's so good.
After the fall and before the dawn.
And
I believe it is in fact considered canon because it's happening almost like parallel in terms of timeline to some degree. But
I believe it is.
It kind of kills me that I don't think we'll get. I highly doubt we'll get to see like standalone like animated chapters for them because Team RWBY won't be there during that time. So like during the time that the focus is on like in Vacuo kind of thing, Vacuo.
Yeah.
And also adding on to John's point about involving the gods, like it actually made me think. Like I thought about this idea too, where they would try to bring the relics together some way, somehow, kind of thing. And if they plead to them to do something about this, because it's humanity, current humanity minus Salem, that wants some good to happen out of all of these tragedies that happened the entire time. I wonder how the gods would react to that. First and foremost, it's like humanity is yet again, demanding things of their creators, but for this reason, like, they're claiming to be noble. Who's to say that they're not going to have another Salem, like in the next 8,000 years?
I totally get that sentiment.
Humanity that itself may be divided in terms of whether or not to even gather them for this reason or for their own selfish reason.
Mm-hmm.
So it's almost like like the Dragon Balls kind of thing, like trying to like get, but I want to be the one to make the wish, not you, like kind of thing. So
yeah,
I do wonder about that, and I guess also I want to say Lewis or Nate, who was talking about like the end solution to this. I always like try to think back to the very first opening, Victories and Soul. I do wonder like if that was intentionally placed to have some form of significance at the very end. It's almost like, and I'm like drawing all these parallel stories. The next one would be One Piece. I don't know how many like of you follow
One Piece.
Yes.
In terms of like current chapter kind of thing, current chapter and current episodes.
Yes.
Of so spoilers, unfortunately. With this would be the backstory for Roger's crew.
Oh yeah.
And them finding out the secret of the final island, and it just made them laugh.
Yeah.
So kind of thing, and that's why they got the name Laugh Tale. So I do wonder, like, is it going to be like when we eventually find out the like final points to RWBY's story, kind of thing? Whenever that will be, will it be simple? Will it be complicated? But also at the same time, will we be satisfied or dissatisfied with what it gets to, kind of thing, with all of the building up that happens in between? So yeah, that's what I have to say.
Just an idea. You know, we already said before, they didn't really explore the concept of the silver eyes a lot. What if she was hunting silver eyes because that's the one thing that could technically purify her, maybe? Because you see, when they use the silver eyes, the Grimm they just disappear or they turn to stone, right? I'm not saying that the silver eyes could kill her. I'm saying maybe she just doesn't want to get rid of her magical abilities. Maybe she doesn't want to go back to regular mortality.
Yeah, maybe it'll purify her of the Grimm.
Yeah.
Huh.
That's why they just kind of targeted the silver eyes, and I'm just like, whoo. Interesting, off topic, but my VTuber Iris is actually silver.
Silver eyes.
You're the one meant to save the series.
Oh yeah.
I don't know about that. There's a lot of emphasis on RWBY and maidens, and I feel like men just don't get enough attention in this show.
Sorry, guys. Leave it to the women.
Okay,
all right,
enough attention every other show. It's fine.
True. Coco was the one in Coffee. She was the one that has like the big briefcase that turned into a gun or something, right?
Yeah.
Yo, that's sick. This is what I mean by creative weapons. Like, I would not want to get hit by her. Like, dang.
That whole team is a bunch of G's. You have the, what's it called? I can't remember her name. The bunny girl.
Yes.
Pictures of weapons and just use them like for free. And then Yasuhashi has like a buster sword.
She's basically Ditto, and I love it. She's so adorable.
It's amazing.
All right, and with that, this has been a very fun Moocast episode. First time I've had 4 guests on the podcast. Thank you for joining me, guys. Do you guys want to take this time to shout out your socials?
I'll hop in and plug. I'm MustBeNateMoney on anything, so MustBeNateMoney, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, all that good stuff. Yeah.
You guys can find Nate's links down in the description below. If you guys enjoyed this episode of the Moocast, don't forget to like and subscribe if you want to see more videos similar to this one. We will be back to talk about episodes 100 and 101 in the next episode. So in the meantime, why don't you tell us what you liked or disliked about RWBY in the comments below? That's it for now, and I'll catch you in the next video. Peace!
Bye, everybody!
Bye! Thanks!